Welcome back to another Consules video. So today we're going to be doing a strategy or like a tier list kind of video. As you can see, I have the 20 techs within the Bloodlines and the community version of Bloodlines out on display right now. And we're going to be going through and ranking them based on how usable they are. And, instead of having like the traditional S, A, B, C, and D tier, I have like a little different version where it's like a rush to buy, where it's like you see this on the opening row, you are grabbing it as soon as you can. Then there's the tier where it's the powerful throughout, where you kind of might pick it. You probably should be picking it up because of its value throughout the game. And yeah, I mean, you probably should be picking it up, I would say. Then there's the tier list where it's like it's below. It's like okay, you're not like rushing to buy it. It's good to have if you have the spice. And it probably will generate you its value throughout the game. Then there's like the situational ones where it's like, okay, depending on what I have in my deck, what my game plan, what plan I have to score 10 points or to win the game, I might buy this tech. It's very situational. Then there's like the last tier list where it's like this tech really is. I mean, these techs are like very rarely bought. And people are like only doing it if they kind of like have the excess spice, or they're only doing it because they need like something to like push them over the edge. Like it's very like and if you see these techs on the opening row, they usually sit there for most of the game. And yeah, it kind of sucks for like the whole tech game plan, because if people are not buying that specific tech, then you don't get to see the other like six, or what is it, five techs that sit underneath it. And yeah, it can like change the game and make the game a little bit more static. So that's that's what we have so far. Right now, the techs are ordered in decreasing spice order, and the last two techs of Disposal Facility and Holoprojectors are at the end because they are mainly just for the community version. So we're gonna go in through and rate all the Bloodlines techs first, and then we'll add in where Disposal Facility and Holoprojector sits within this specific tier list. So let's begin. The first tech that we're going to be looking at is Sardukar High Command. What does this Sardukar High Command do? As you can see, it says you can recruit a commander. So actually, there's an on-buy effect, which is pretty crucial here. It's a victory point. For 7 spice, you can buy a victory point. Recruiting a Sardukar commander, including when you acquire one, costs you 1 Solari less. So I'm going to tell you how effective it is. I mean, for 7 spice for a point, I mean, it seems pretty nice. I guess it could be 6 spice for a point if you have high council. But usually this tech is very expensive for its effect. Maybe if it was like a 3 cost tech, a 4 cost tech, didn't give you a point, but instead gave you like Solari on buy, maybe it would become a little bit more effective. But I mean, for right now, this tech really just sits at the bottom of the tier list. If you see this on the opening row, you almost are never gonna be like picking this up early. And late game, people are only buying it just for that extra point, to push them over the edge for maybe to get to 10, or maybe they somebody's sitting with like with like another tech, and they kind of just need, or they just have an excess spice, so this generates them a point. Like sometimes I know I've had games where I just sit with like 20 spice, and I'm like, well, I need to do something with it. So if I can spend like 6 spice or 7 spice for a point, it's not that big of an issue. Even like the actual ability of recruiting a Sardukar commander for one cheaper isn't really that strong, because like realistically speaking, even if you've bought like all the Sardukars, right? I mean, I think there's what, 5, 6 maybe. If you bought all of them and you have all the skills, why are you even like getting that 1 Solari back doesn't even help you that much, because you might as well just go spend that Solari on like High Council, or spend that Solari on like getting Swordmaster, unless you just have like infinite Solari generation with being Yuna, or just having like Corinth City, or just other reasons. But even if you do have the infinite spice the Solar generation, you still need to find 7 spice to go to high, or 6 spice if you have high council to buy this point, and still it doesn't really feel that helpful, because you're better off spending your spice on like other spaces, or maybe even other techs. So that's Sardukar High Command for you. Yeah, and it literally just sits most of the game. So the next tech we're going to be looking at is Chaom Transports. So what does Chaom Transports do? When you complete a contract, you get to draw a card. And on endgame, it's worth a victory point if you have 4 or more contracts completed. Keep in mind that it costs six spice to buy, and you get a contract on buy. So it actually is not it's not a bad tech. 6 persuasion, it can, I mean, 6 spice, it can be pretty expensive, but at least for me, or the way that I've played these games, you can tell that this is a very situational game. Only if the contracts are specific, are aligned. Like, say, you get both Sardukar contracts on the row, or you get both Highlander contracts on the row. But even if you do get both of them, right, you still need to find like 6 spice or 5 spice to buy this tech, and then also another 4 spice or 5 spice to be able to go to like Highlander or complete the um what's it called, the starter card contracts. You could also, maybe you could get lucky with the high council recall contracts. Like, you realistically only are buying this tech if you've already completed like one contract, or you have, like, if you've bought like delivery logistics, let's say, to get you, extra contracts. Actually being able to complete a contract and getting a card draw on it has been super effective, if you do actually, go into this like contract gameplay. Typically you see this card, or this tech being bought like Chaom demands, obviously, because you need to complete 4 contracts with Chaom demands to be able to trigger all 4 bumps. But yeah, this tech specifically is very situational, unless you're playing into a specific line of Chaom, or are hoping that the contracts, are easily able to be completed, or just have a way to spam a lot of contracts. um, this Chaom Transports is not one of the techs that goes early, and is very dependent on what you're doing as a player to score 10 points, or to win the game. Next up, we have Navigation Chamber. So for 5 spice, you get a bump on buy. And for the rest of the game, board spaces cost you 1 spice and 1 slurry less. So that means espionage becomes a free space. So instead of having to spend 1 spice on espionage that you typically have to do, you just go to espionage for free. Spice Runner, you automatically always get 4 Solari, because it has like the cost generation where it's like, if you spend 1 spice, you get 4 Solari. But now, since that board space costs you 1 spice less, you just get 4 Solari. Spice Refinery, High Council becomes 4 Solari. Sardukar becomes 3 spice. Highlander becomes 4 spice. Shipping becomes 2 spice. Maybe that's relevant. Maybe that I could get making having that extra spice is might be relevant for maybe combats, to spend that 3 spice for a point, or 4 spice for a point. Maybe that extra Solari is nice, to maybe spawn more commanders. Like, this tech has its uses. However, it's not really like that. It's like, for 5 spice, it seems pretty it's pretty crazy, I would say. Like, I mean, yes, for getting discount for 1 spice and 1 Solari, and if you don't generate like the 4 spice or whatever, or 4 spice, maybe like 3 Solari or whatever, that this card effectively is, gets you on buy. I mean, the bump on buy is super nice, because maybe the bump gets you like access to privilege, so that you can spam privilege for 2 Solari effectively. I don't know. I would rate this tech specifically on the situational chain, on the situational tier. Why? Because unless you really, I mean, the earlier you get nav chamber, the better, right? Because you get more turns to get your spice back and your Solari back. And later in the game, you're really only buying nav chamber for like the bump. The extra bump is super nice, because maybe it could get you the alliance ahead of somebody. And like, maybe at like, getting 5 spice to buy nav chamber early on is quite difficult, right? I mean, there's so many other techs that might be able to buy for 5, right? So getting getting the bump early on is nice, maybe for access to Fremen, possibly, Siege. But then you still need to find 5 spice somehow, which is difficult. And you could argue that maybe it's 4 spice for you, but even for 4 spice, you still need to go to High Council, and you really want to buy this tech early on, because you get the most amount of value for the board spaces. Board space costs you 1 spice and 1 Solari less, so you want to buy this early on. And even if you buy like round 5, right? Maybe you like, how often are you going to a space that even costs you Solari or spice in general, right? How often are you going to High Council? Maybe like twice you might be going to High Council. I mean, Swordmaster, I guess, costs you one Solari less. Sure. How often are you going to like any of the other spaces that even cost you Spice or Solari? I mean, I can understand an argument for espionage. Sardukar, maybe it's like a one-time thing. Like realistically speaking, for every time that I've played with Nav Chamber, I've saved maybe like two spice at best, right? There's one game with Alese Kaz that I played where I got navigation chamber on round 2 and I was able to save I don't know, I think it was like 3 spice or listen, 4 spice and like 3 Solari, and I thought that whoa, this is great. I mean the bump obviously for me because of the Alese Kaz, I took it on was that Emperor because then I could go to privilege for for 2 Solari effectively and just draw through my whole deck. But anyways, that was a very niche case, getting navigation chamber on round 2. But otherwise, it's very situational. It's very like it's not. I wouldn't even say it's definitely not like good value because like very rarely do you see that 5 spice or 4 spice being converted back to you, or being able to save that 4 or 5 spice. Um, but anyways, that's I guess that's the argument for nav chamber. I know some people like it. One one leader that it really does help on is Duke Leto. Why Duke Leto? So I mean, Duke Leto already gets bumps through a signet ring, right? One spice for the bump, and that bump usually goes on Emperor. Why? Because if you look at Duke Leto's ability, he has the ability to make every green space 1 Solari cheaper. So he already has High Council for 4 and Swordmaster for 7 or 5. Now with Navigation Chamber, he can actually make Privilege or make High Council 3 Solari and make Swordmaster 6 Solari or 4 Solari, effectively becoming like a Duncan. So I know a couple of people have played with Navigation Chamber on Duke Leto and have just spammed the absolute hell out of Imperial Privilege. So they just take this bump on Imperial on the Emperor track, and they obviously use their Signet Ring to get the second bump, or maybe just go to Dutiful Service to pick up a contract to maybe generate Solari later on. But yeah, I know that's like it's a very situational thing. Like you have to be like Duke Leto, and you have to have like the bumps on Emperor. But also like if you're using a spice to take a bump on Emperor, you still need to find 5 spice somewhere to, or the Solari to go to High Council to buy this for 4 or whatever. Like it's great in theory, but in practice it's quite hard to pull off because you've spent like maybe like your first 3 turns finding the spice to then have this like OP ability to go to privilege for 1 Solari. Like, okay, great, congrats, but I mean, what if you get blocked on privilege? Then it's not the greatest. But yeah, that's I think it sits definitely below Chaom Transports, because Chaom Transports, I think you can make a case for that, like, hey, look, it's pretty common that people do complete contracts. Um but in terms of like what you individually as a player should buy, it literally depends on what game plan you're what play style you're playing on. Maybe if you're playing a contract game or not. Navigation chamber, it's like, I wouldn't even say it's like a per player thing. It's literally just like it's 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 pretty bad, but I do think it does get picked up a little bit more than say like Sardukar High Command, because the bump is super nice, and it does have its situation uses with like Duke Letter and whatnot. So next up, we're gonna go to one of my favorite techs, Panopticon. On reveal turn, you get a spy and a troop, and if you look at the end game condition, that is what makes this tech one of the strongest techs in the game, if not the strongest tech in the game. And this is definitely going to be a rush to buy. So it costs 5 spice to buy. There is no there's no on buy effect, which is fantastic because of how strong of a tech this is. So on reveal turn, you get a spy and a troop, and on endgame, you gain an influence with each faction where you have 1 or less influence, effectively making it's like the new version of spy satellites from Ixit Immortality. However, this does mean like, since you only get 1 influence, and spy satellites is like you get 2 influence on basically every track that you don't have 2 influence on. This does mean that you do have to still get 1 influence on every faction uh, to get the second influence with Panopticon on endgame. So, anyways, that like getting 1 influence on like every faction is not difficult. With this tech, what you effectively can do is you just go for one faction alliance. You just spam like Fremen, right? And then you get like hooks and whatever and you just go for the front lines. And then throughout the rest of the game, you're like, oh, okay, this is a good time for me to maybe send my diplomacy to dutiful service to pick up the end game point here for Panopticon. Maybe it's time to go deliver supplies for the water, and you get your end game point there. Just very good options. It basically gives you a lot of mobility in how to play your game. Also, looking at the reveal turn, getting a spy and a troop, that is so nice. We already know how much Bloodlines and Uprising in general revolves around combat, right? So this extra troop, getting that extra troop every round basically means you can just throw the troop in. Even if the combat does not give you troops back, there's not that many combats that don't give you troops back, but if it's the what is it called, the contract combat, that one doesn't give you troops back unless you get like third, but most combats do give you troops back. But anyways, like this, getting the extra troop back effectively means you can throw that troop in and guarantee yourself a garrison as well for next round. And I mean, with this extra troop, maybe you're guaranteed, maybe you can guarantee yourself thirds, seconds, and maybe that extra troop might actually generate you first. Also, the spy on reveal. The spy on reveal is so nice because I mean, the earlier you get Panopticon, the more spies you generate, the more troops you generate, right? And the more chances you have to just like say that I'm gonna go for an alliance. Because if you make a hold on one alliance, the rest of the table knows not to really go for it because they know you're gonna spend every single resource or whatever, every single faction bump on that alliance because that's the only alliance you're gonna go for the whole game. Um, but anyways, that's not really like that's one of the good parts about having Panopticon. One of the other ones is being the spy, right? So the spy is important for infiltration, but also for the recall of the card draw, right? You could have put the spy on, like, say, High Council, or like the High Council space or whatever, but also it gives you access to Swordmaster. So like later on, when somebody does get Swordmaster, you can get that spy on green, as long as you're not playing with like a Staban who's just spamming that green space or like a Mahayam. I mean, there's like obviously some exceptions, but that you're probably not going to see that Swordmaster spy because it's a commonly contested spy. But the extra spy is super nice. And usually you will see Panopticon players put that extra spy on either Espionage to get the double draw, maybe Fremkit to get the double draw, Irakin to get the double draw, or Accept Contract to get the double draw. Commonly, you will also see this spy on Privilege or the Swordmaster Water Spy so that you can go to Privilege and get the double draw. And why is the double draw important? Because you're not playing a faction heavy game. What kind of game are you playing? You're going to be playing combat or you're going to be playing spies with slow. So you want to be placing your spies with Panopticon on spaces where you can draw more cards to see your decks, to see more spice and slows, right? That is the whole point of Panopticon. You give up on the whole faction track and just, get your single bumps for the rest of the game and play this into like a into a spice with slow mindset. And that is commonly what you will see. This tech also is commonly paired with like a contract game because you are just effectively finding ways to get points that don't deal with don't deal with the faction track, right? You just go for your one alliance, and maybe sometimes if you are playing like a super heavy faction game where somebody has like Public Spectacle, Overthrow, Interstellar Trade, and they're like everybody else is fighting for alliances, you just not having to worry about alliances, and you simply just take the troops and fight combat, take the spies, and go for spice slow. You can turtle away very easily. And the good thing about Panopticon is that the end game effect is extremely nice because you can technically, if you're in the lead as a Panopticon player, right? That feeling is extremely powerful because you know that the minute that somebody else ends the game, they can't even win because you're just sitting there with like 2 points with on end game with Panopticon. So even if they end the game on like 10, right? They know that you're going to be on 11. So they're actually in a position where if they end the game, they lose. And they know that they lose. So they objectively can't end the game. So then the game goes one more round. And that whole dynamic just shifts the whole game plan. I've had so many games where I'm with Panopticon or an opponent of mine has Panopticon. And they're sitting there with 3 points just on endgame. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, I can't end the game because then I just lose. So I have to like think to myself, okay, what is the most amount of points I can get this round without ending the game, and also make sure I can score a lot of points next round. And I mean, commonly, like if you're ever in that position with the panel player having like 3 points on end game and you automatically like you can't end the game because they're gonna win, that means they've probably already won the game. Like it's very rare that like you choose to not end the game and the next round you end up winning the game against the Panopticon player. It's just very rare because this tech really defines who's gonna win the game. I mean, even at like I've played multiple tournaments where this tech really defines what the game is of a player. So, anyways, this is going to be a rush to buy tech, probably the best tech um in the whole catalog of techs. And for 5 spice, I mean, it is expensive, but whoever does get it usually is in a great spot to you know to win the game. The spy being super powerful for draw, and the troop being super powerful for combat. Next on the list, we have spy drones. So spy drones for me has personally been an underrated tech. For 5 spice, only getting 2 deep spies, I guess how we call them, uninfiltrated spies. And then on the play access, it's if you flip the tech, you get to get a Solari, and if you ended up recalling a spy this round, you get to trash a card. So originally, when I saw this tech, I was like, well, this is not that great of a tech. I mean, for 5 spice, for 2 spies that could go anywhere, and then getting one Solari over time, it's not really that great. But then I kind of like played with it a couple of times, and I was like, whoa, this tech is actually really really strong. Um, Oh, definitely not. I wouldn't say like really, really strong, but it's definitely like valuable for 5 spice. Now, why is it valuable? Let me quickly explain. So, I'm gonna quickly rate this on good value because it's not powerful throughout. So, I mean, you definitely don't rush to buy it. And I like it's not powerful enough for me to be like great throughout the game. Early on, if you get it, it's nice because the trash is nice. But let me explain why I really rate this tech. So the 2 spies are fantastic, right? That one spy that you get, one of the deep spies, probably going to be going on Swordmaster, right? Because this tech gives you Solari passively, you're gonna get enough. At some point, you can get that Solari to maybe go Swordmaster. So the spy on Swordmaster, guaranteed spy on Swordmaster or High Council, is super nice. Then the second spy tends to be on like espionage or tends to be on spaces that you might use to draw cards or generate spies. Why? See, why do you want to generate spies? Because of this tech itself, right? Because anytime you recall a spy this round, you can flip the tech, get a Solari and a trash. So that trash is actually super important because if you can trash a card almost every round, right? Like not including the amount of like not including going to tactics, then that's actually super effective because you can get rid of like your daggers, you can get rid of your dunes, you can get rid of maybe your recons, and then now you're gonna be seeing like better cards throughout the rest of the game. Like there's one game I had with Spy Drones where I mean I saw Public Spectacle, and I mean I just put the deep spy on espionage and then one spy on Swordmaster, and I would just like go to espionage, trash a card, draw into my spectacle even more, and it was just like that was my whole game plan. I would just try to farm faction bumps as much as possible. That game there was somebody who with an overthrow against me, and somehow I still ended up with more alliances than them because they just could not see overthrow as much as I would see spectacle, and I was seeing spectacle basically every round. So getting getting that trash is so nice. Also, not to say the Solari is also great. One thing to keep in mind with spy drones, though, is that you can't just flip the tech and get a Solari. That is completely allowed. But if you do flip the tech and get the Solari, you cannot use that Solari to then go to a space, recall a spy, and then trash a card. Once that tech is flipped, you just get this. You get whatever rewards you reaped from that round. For whatever action you've done. So if you haven't flipped a spy that round and you decide to flip the tech, then you cannot trash. But you can still get the Solari. So typically, sometimes people, will just go to like on their second action if they don't have Swordmaster, just go to like Assembly Hall or High Council, buy this tech, and then instantly flip it for one Solari back, which isn't a bad idea. You effectively get like if you buy this like round 4, round 5, this is actually pretty useful because you get to trash more cards. So I mean, assuming that you bought like relatively powerful cards by round 5, you get to see those cards on like round 6, round 7, round 8, if the game goes on that long, and the value is super super nice. Not to say like this tech has also been really effective when the Arakeen combat comes off. And the one that I'm specifically talking about is the Arakeen for the 2 spies combat. When when that specific combat comes out, you can buy this on like round 7, round 8, and then use those 2 spies to be able to spend on when you do win the combat. Then I mean other use cases for these 2 spies can also be for spring the trap. I've had a couple of games where my opponents literally like buy this on like they're on like what, round 7, and I'm like, okay, well, we know why they bought it, because I mean the combat wasn't really a spy recall combat, or they didn't their deck wasn't talking much about spies. So it's like, okay, when somebody buys this, it kind of is an indication that they might have spring the trap, especially if it's like really late on the game. Early in the game, this tech is actually super nice. I mean, getting the spies, getting the deep spies wherever you want. Like one probably is going to be on sword master. The other one's probably going to be going on either espionage, Eric Keen, just any other spaces. You can also, I mean, the thing is, this spy can go literally anywhere on the board, right? So it is nice because it gives you flexibility. However, one issue that I do have, the only issue with spy drones that I have is that it kind of is situational, in the sense that it depends on the leader. It's great. It's great. I wouldn't bump it down to like situational tier, but I would definitely keep it I mean, I would definitely keep it where it is, simply because there's some leaders that just don't generate spies. So it's like, unless you're like actively going to like buy cards that generate you spies, like maybe Wheels and Wheels, maybe Covert Operation, you're not really gonna see spies unless you go directly to espionage, which feels kind of limited in that sense. Obviously, like, yes, it does. Like, that is the effect, like, essence of spy drones, that you need to be able to get spies to be able to trigger this, like, every round or whatever. Um, but yeah, I do think, like, I think for its cost, it definitely would. I would bump it down to, like, good value compared to being like powerful throughout. Simply because of its 5. If it was like 4, I would definitely push it higher, because that 4 barrier, I think, would be like, because if you're getting 4 spice for 4 spice, getting like a Solari every round is super nice, along with the trash. The trash is super effective, right? And then two spies is fantastic. Um, but yeah, I think spy drones is really underrated. I know some people really enjoy spy drones, and they would probably put it at like powerful. They would probably put it in the tier higher above like the B tier right now. One last thing about spy drones is also, there's a couple leaders that really like spy drones. One of them being Hazimir Fenring. Why does Hazimir Fenring like it? If you look at his ability, it says for any time he trashes a card, he gets a Solari. So with spy drones, he becomes really strong, because it's to trash a card and get 2 Solari every time he does it. So that, effectively can be like, money for Swordmaster and High Council, more commanders. So he loves that. He loves spy drones. The other leader also being Yuna Moritani, because anytime she gets Solari, she gets 2 Solari. So I mean, very good for both of them. So if you are Hazimir and you see spy drones, or you are Yuna and you see spy drones, you should probably think about buying it, simply just because they are, it can get you a lot of value for how much it costs. Yes, it's 5 spice, but it will generate you a lot of Solari and a lot of spies back. And Hasmir also has the ability to generate a spy on Emperor. So anytime you just go to Emperor, you can trash a card, get 2 Solari, maybe get a commander. Who knows? Like, you're in a really strong spot there. But yeah, next we'll move on to rapid dropships. So this tech, on buy, you get 2 troops, and with those, and the minute that you buy those 2 troops, you can actually deploy them into the combat, as long as you haven't done this on your, like, unless you've bought this on your real turn, or you've bought this on your on like a combat retreat to buy a tech. I forgot what, a battlefield research. Unless you've done that, you can't deploy those in. But anyways, most of the times when you are acquiring this tech, you are able to instantly deploy those 2 troops into the combat. But what dropships basically does is that on your agent turn, you can flip this tech, and then if any space that you're on becomes a combat space. You can only do this once throughout the round. Yeah, throughout the round. You can only do this once throughout the round. So typically, you will see this. You see dropships being used on, I'd probably say, like, High Council revisits. I mean, that's a great spot for dropships, because you get 3 troops on your High Council revisit, and you get the 2 spice to buy another tech or whatever. But I mean, that effectively is like a mini Highliner. You get 3 troops plus 2 troops in your garrison. I mean, I've had some games where I actually go to the High Council revisit to buy dropships, so I get 2 more troops from dropships itself, making it effectively a Highliner space, along with me getting 2 spice back and an intrigue. Right, it becomes a better Highliner effectively. I've seen people buy this like early on. Early on, it's fantastic because now you can become a combat threat without even having to do a combat space, right? You get going to gather support, which is like not that great of a space commonly. People only go there early on to get the commander, and later on to just get the just to get the extra troops because they feel like they're weak in the combat. But making gather support effectively like a combat space, I mean, that's fantastic. You get 2 troops plus 2 troops in your garrison. So I mean, that's effectively 8 strength minimum. You're probably going to be putting from gather support. It doesn't even have to be 8 strength. It could be 4 just from the 2 troops you get from gather support. It turns Sardukar, which is like commonly like less visited space, into a combat space, which is without having to have Sardukar coordination. Uh, yeah, and I mean that's beautiful when you can just go to Sardukar and then instantly deploy. It's even greater when you buy both of the Sardukar contracts and then you get the draw and whatever. Like when you can like power up Sardukar, making it a combat space, and then also being able to do other things with it. Anyways, that's not the point of this tech, but the tech is mainly for its agent ability of making every space into a combat space. I've had games where I can just go to espionage and I'm like, well, nobody is deployed on this combat and I'm last to act, so I can just flip on espionage. I can draw into my spice of slow, or not into my spice of slow, but like draw enough cards to be able to purchase a spice of slow, and then be able to just deploy 1 troop or maybe even 1 commander into the combat and get rewards that way, right? It's super effective, and simply because of that, I think it's going to be a super powerful tech throughout. Very strong early on, even stronger later on, because you can if this. I've had some games where this tech actually flipped off on like round 6, I think, and then somebody, or was it round 7, and then because of this tech flipping off, somebody was instantly able to go to gather support and then deploy another what's this, because can they buy rapid dropships, so that's what 2 troops from rapid dropships, 2 troops from gather support, and then they were also able to deploy 1 troop from their garrison, because that's what they had at that moment, so they were able to deploy in 5-10 strength effectively, and that won them the combat over me, and it kind of sucks because if dropships was not there, I was going to be winning the combat. But yeah, it can quite easily flip the way you play the game and change the whole combat dynamic. Like if you don't even have if you don't have a combat leader per se, like say you're not playing Fade Routa, you're not playing Gurney Halleck, you're not playing I forgot some of the other combat leaders, but if you're not playing the combat leaders, you can still go very combat heavy if with dropships, because you just make every space into a combat space. You also threaten other people from being able to deploy into the combat, because they know that, hey, this person can always just go to like gather support and then drop ships, and then now I just don't get any rewards in the combat. So people are a lot more hesitant to deploy into the combat, and that like mental mind game effectively can get you easy third place into the combat, and just boost your engine a lot. I mean, I already talked about this, right? High Council Revisit being super strong with rapid drop ships. I mean, for the troops deploy, for the spice and the intrigues. I mean, it is fantastic. I think rapid drop ships, you wouldn't rush to buy it per se, but if it's out on the row, people are going to be picking it up earlier than later, I would say. Um, but yeah, so we'll like rapid dropships, definitely a powerful throughout the game. Next, we're gonna go on to self-destroying messages. So self-destroying messages, what does it do, right? Before I rate it, we'll quickly talk about it. It's 4 spice, same spice as dropships, and you get 2 intrigues on buy. And those 2 intrigues, you just get 2 intrigues on buy. And then on your reveal turn for the rest of the game, you get 1 extra persuasion. Now, you'd think like, okay, this is just Minimic Film from XIMO, but it's actually surprisingly better than Minimic Film. Why? Because the 2 intrigues actually are super nice. Like if you get this early on, right? You getting that extra persuasion is super nice for the game. Obviously, like I don't even know where I put Minimic Film over self-trusting messages, because I mean you don't get any persuasion per se from Minimic. You don't get any like on buy effects from Minimic Film, but you get persuasion for the rest of the game. So you can probably buy Minimic Film a lot more earlier than you'd buy self-trusting messages, but I would still put self-trusting messages in a very powerful throughout that tier within like the A tier effectively. Why? Because I mean, getting that 1 persuasion throughout the game is super strong, right? Getting this, like I've seen players effectively get this tech with High Council, and then that becomes 3 persuasion for the rest of the game. So like effectively making their spice and slow 6 persuasion. And yeah, that is that like or having to reveal for 6 persuasion, and that is fantastic. If you get some cards that have command abilities on them, there's a couple of cards on here, text on there that have command abilities. But if you can get like a command ability tech or get a command ability card, this like self-directing messages is extremely nice, because you almost are never going to be missing command for the rest of the game. I've seen people buy this tech, like the earliest I've seen it was what round 2, where they literally just had where they spent where they went to like Haga Basin to get the extra spice, and then they got one more spice from the combat, and then were able to somehow go to High Council with like an intrigue, and then they got self-triggering messages. It was a crazy. I mean, they had 3 persuasion for the rest of the game. It was super nice, and then that allowed them to buy Steersman. One of the other things with self-triggering messages is the fact that it's super strong, because not only do you get those intrigues, which can be super strong like early on, because the value of an intrigue is, I mean, effectively gets worse as the game progresses. Early on, the intrigues are super nice because they kind of can give you like a game plan. It's like, okay, well, if the 2 intrigues that you see are like super combat, well, you know what to do, right? You're gonna go fight in combats. If the 2 intrigues that you see are like, end games where it's like, oh, complete 4 contracts, or if it's like, Shadow Alliance, or like Spice and Slow, or like have Scare Spice Trade, where it's you see 2, where if you have 2 Spice and Slows, you can end up getting an end game point. Then it kind of gives you a game plan, right? I mean, if you see specifically Secure Spice Trade with self-triggering messages, you are absolutely like you're in a great position, because I mean, self-triggering messages is gonna get you those spice slows, right? But anyways, that's not the point. I'm saying like the intrigues that you get from self-triggering messages can really give you like a navigation, like can give you like a path on your on the way for you to score points effectively. So that's why I think it's definitely like a powerful throughout the like in that tier. But yeah, like you can also the one of the other use cases with self-triggering messages is the fact that you can get like not only spice and slows, but also like the earlier you buy it, you get that extra like 1 persuasion, allowing you to maybe get that 6 cost, or that shows off on the road, like pointing the way. Maybe like steersman flips off. I've seen people literally go to assembly hall, buy self-triggering messages, and then have get like steersman instantly. It's, I mean, very strong. I've seen people like almost rush to buy it, but it's definitely like I wouldn't say rush to buy it in the sense of like the tier, but I've seen people do it because of a specific card on the row, right? Overthrows on the row, steersman's on the row. Like some people are literally rushing to buy this tech. But in most games, when because there's literally what 3 cards that you're maybe gonna be searching for like a lot of persuasion early on. Other than that, most games you're not gonna see this be rushed for, I'd say. So that's why I think it's a little bit lower, but I still personally I think self-destructing messages is maybe better than dropship. So we'll actually move it up above, because getting the intrigues is super nice because they give you a game plan, and then the persuasion throughout the rest of the game is extremely powerful. Then we'll go on to Ornithopter Fleet. Ornithopter Fleet, what does it do? It gives you 2 troops, and then all your battle icons are going to be ornithopters for the rest of the game. So just a quick little like I don't know how to put this like niche case with Coda and Ornithopter Fleet is okay. So say you have 2 random battle icons, right? That, or sorry, 3 random battle icons that haven't matched, right? So it's like Ornithopter, mouse, and I don't know, another mouse or something, right? What happens is that since all those icons become Ornithopter, you can choose which ones to match effectively. You can choose to match like the Ornithopter with the mouse, or you can choose to match the Chris knife with the mouse and then keep the Ornithopter, right? You can choose which ones to like effectively turn into a match, right? What you should do though is always put aside with the original tokens on top of the tech. So say you have like you had the rainbow. In fact, most people are really buying this tech because they have the rainbow, right? They have 1 blue, 1 yellow, and 1 green icon. So with Coda specifically, right? You should declare at the start, hey, like, look, for Ornithopter Fleet, I'm flipping my Ornithopter and I'm flipping my Chris knife together. So that means in the case that you do ever trash this tech with Coda, because she's, I think, believe the only leader that can just trash a tech, because when she trashes a tech, she gets a intrigue and a card draw. When you do trash Ornithopter, that one icon that doesn't get left, that doesn't remain matched, or that just like floats around, actually gets reverted back into its original match or its original icon. So say if you converted a Chris knife and a Ornithopter into a match, they will stay the match, but once you trash the tech, um the extra I guess icon left from the desert mouse that you didn't match converts back into a desert mouse, and you lose the Ornithopter icon. Matched icons, however, stay matched. So if you did end up matching with Ornithopter Fleet, then they will stay they will stay matched as the Ornithopter point or whatever. But unmatched icons will end up reverting back to their original icons. But anyways, now that that niche case is over, let's get into like where this tech really sits. And for me, it sits most of the game. Let's talk about why it sits most of the game. I mean, one of them is quite obvious. How often are you getting two non-matches, right? How often are you really like you need to get those? How often do you really need to like score that match to end the game? I mean, I've seen some players have to basically find the match in order to end the game on like round 6. So people do end up buying Ornithopter Fleet to get the match. So that's what I meant when I said like some people just need to buy these bottom techs just to push them over the edge to maybe be able to end the game. Other than that, the Ornithopter Fleet almost is like never bought. If you see this on the opening row, it's very, very you're never gonna be buying this unless you specifically end up with two non-matched. Realistically, like you're only buying this if you are just like a combat threat for like most of the game. Like you've won like 4 combats and you're sitting with like two unmatched, and you're like, well, I need to find the match for them. So let me just quickly Ornithopter Fleet match them together. The 2 troops from Ornithopter Fleet, I mean, not being able to deploy them is not the greatest. So it's like, okay, nice. I mean, I can understand being combat, like, being able to pair this with like dropships, going to like gather support. But then again, like, you're not really going to gather support to buy Ornithopter Fleet to be able to match or to be able to deploy those troops in combat. I can understand sometimes an argument where it's like, okay, you need to get those troops in with dropships, and then you win the combat, and that combat doesn't match for you. So Ornithopter Fleet would end up matching those combats for you. Like, sure, okay. It's other than that, like on the open, if this text sits on if it's on the opening row, it will literally be there for most of the game until like maybe round 7 when somebody's like, hey, look, I have these 2 matches and I don't think I'm going to be winning a combat. So let me just quickly match them. And I don't have an end game for them either. Like there's so many ways you can score points, right? Like if you could just find one of the end game matches for one of your mismatched icons, you literally get the same amount of points that Ornithopter Fleet generates you. So that's why you don't really see this tech played much. But yeah, I mean, Ornithopter Fleet, I think, is probably worse than Sardukar High Command. I mean, Sardukar High Command at least gets you the point guaranteed and maybe has some value throughout. Ornithopter Fleet, like, maybe it would be lower. The next tech that we're looking at is going to be Advanced Data Analysis. So what does Advanced Data Analysis do? To acquire this tech, you must trash one of your spies from the board. So in order to even acquire this tech, you have to have a spy on the board currently. It can be anywhere, it doesn't matter. But that spy will then be removed from the place that it's at, and then go straight to your trash pile. So now for the rest of the game, you will only be playing with 2 spies. Which, I mean, it could be interesting, right? This has pretty nice use cases because you get to see intrigues. The earlier that you buy it, the more intrigues you see. So you can instantly flip it on the round that you buy it. So like say you buy round 4, then you get to see an intrigue on round 4, round 5, round 6, round 7, and however however long the game goes on. So usually with this intrigue, I don't know. I think it's a pretty good intrigue, but I would say like of all places to go, I think it's like once this intrigue doesn't leave the row in like the first like 4 rounds, you don't usually see it being picked up. Because like unless people know that the game's gonna end on round like 8 or 9, and they're like, okay, well I'm gonna get enough value from this intrigue back. I originally, I believe when the game came out and people saw this tech, they were like, oh my god, this is such a crazy tech. So people started rushing to buy it. But then they realized like, okay, I mean, spending your first 2 actions to try to get advanced data analysis online isn't the greatest. Because you get to only play the game with like 2 spies for the rest of the game. Which can be interesting. I mean, if you aren't a spy leader, say like if you are, because Staban usually wants his spies, so you don't commonly see Steban buy advanced data analysis. However, there is some cases where he might want to buy it simply just because he's gonna say like, "Hey, look, I'm just gonna play with 2 spies for the rest of the game." Commonly, you see this with like I can understand Margot being picking this one up because I mean her spies can only go on blue, and there's only 3 blue spaces anyways, so it's like one of those spies isn't really gonna matter too much. But yeah, it gets a little bit tricky when you have like Spring the Trap along with this intrigue or along with this tech, and you're like, okay, wait, I wish I had a third spy so that I can recall and whatnot. And if you get like some sort of spy removal cards like in high places or spy network, then you're like, okay, well, I wish I had the third spy. Anyways, usually like for 3 spice, it's not a bad intrigue. Having to worry about the spy, you don't get a third spy, but it's not going to make that big a difference. And if you aren't a spy leader, it shouldn't really matter too much for you. Spies are pretty good, but getting rid of the intrigue, or like getting intrigues over time is fantastic. In compared to like spy drones, where would I put it? I actually, I don't know. I actually think maybe advanced data analysis is worse than spy drones because spy drones just has so much value with the trashing and Solari. And getting rid of the spy. I love spies. I love playing spy leaders. I love playing with spies. So I'm not really a big fan of advanced data analysis. But to each their own. I know some people would like to put advanced data analysis up here. Some people think that it's actually not that great, so they would maybe bring it down here to like situational, based on what leader you're playing and whatnot. But usually, I think advanced data analysis, it would get you a decent bit of value for 3 spice. I mean, you could pick it up with high council. Usually, however, like yes, you could probably pick it up with high council, but most times you're really never picking up advanced data analysis with high council. It's most likely going to be like a assembly hall play to get advanced data analysis online, simply because you want to get this early on. And if you're like high council seems to be like around 3 or sorry, round 4 action or whatever, and you also have to have a spy by that round to be able to like trigger this all at once. Anyways, I don't know. I don't think I would pick advanced data analysis over like rapid dropships or self-defining messages if I had the spice for all of them. I'd probably pick spy drones before I picked up advanced data analysis if I'm being honest. So I think based on that, I would put 88 after spy drones. So the next tech we're gonna look at here is Delivery Bay. Delivery Bay, what does it say? It says on buy, you get a card draw. And on your reveal turn, if you have command online, which is if you have 6 persuasion on reveal, you get 2 Solari. So this tech for me is actually one of the strongest techs in the game. I love to buy this tech. If I see this tech on the row, I'm almost always gonna buy it. Like, especially if it's on the opening row, I'm like, okay, how can I get 3 spice? Because not only is friend for me, I'm gonna be it's for me it's gonna be a rush to buy tech. I know some people are like put it on like powerful. Some people, I mean, people are gonna always put this in like A tier or A tier. Why do I believe it's S tier? Because if this is on the opening row, right? Even if it comes off on like the next whatever tech and it flips off, people really like to buy this card because if this tech is like there before like round 4 or round 5, right? Getting that extra card draw can also get you the ability to buy like a really nice card, right? Maybe you've trashed your cards before, or if you haven't trashed your cards, it doesn't matter. Like you can play a dagger to like assembly hall or play a dagger to like high council, and then get Deliver Bay online. As long as you have 6 persuasion, and you can also draw a card to effectively hit that 6 persuasion. And you could probably buy a card on the row that's gonna get you value over time. So and then also you get 2 Solari, which is effective for like high council, for swordmaster, for commanders. Delivery is very, very strong with high council. That is one of the things I've noticed. And obviously with any sort of Solari generating leaders like mainly Yuna, Delivery is fantastic because on a command effect you get 3 Solari instead of 2. But yeah, I mean, I really rate Delivery Bay, and I think it's one of the strongest intrigues or one of the strongest techs out there. I mean, obviously, the later the game goes on to like round 6, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm not gonna buy Delivery Bay because I'm not gonna get much value. So I'm probably better off buying like self-destroying messages or maybe even I don't know nav chamber based on what my faction game is like, right? I'm saying in terms of like just strict like techs themselves, Delivery Bay is very, very, very strong. The card draw and mainly the 2 Solari for persuasion. commonly you will see Delivery Bay being picked up with High Council, because you spend 5 Solari to get High Council, right? But you're gonna get 2 Solari for like the rest of the game because you have High Council. So it's gonna be pretty hard for you to miss 6 Persuasion. And based on that, you're gonna get your Solari in what 3 rounds max. And if you take it like a trip to Spice Refinery, well, now you have enough for Sword Master, and you already have High Council, so you're in a great spot. So that's why I think Delivery Bay is probably a rush to buy tech for me. Is how does it compare to Panopticon? Definitely worse. I mean, if I see Panopticon or I see Delivery Bay on the row and I have Spice for both of them, I'm most likely going to be buying Panopticon, simply because I just don't have to worry about factions anymore. It's like, hey, look, I don't want to do this faction game. I'm just going to try to print Spice and Slows. I'm just going to try to score as many points without the without having to go worry about factions. And yeah, that's it for Delivery Bay. Next, let's move on to one of the most broken techs in the game. Well, I wouldn't say broken techs, but one of the most highly sought out techs in the game. And this is going to be Plasteel Blades. What does Plasteel Blades do? So, for 3 spice, you can get 4 Solari instantly. And also, whenever you recruit a Sardukar commander, you can trash this tech and gain an extra Sardukar commander skill. Right. And why is that so strong? So let's think about the Sardukar skills, right? On the opening row, there's only there's what, 7 skills total. There's driven, there's charismatic, hardy. Those are the 3 real ones. Then the sword ones are loyal, canny, fierce, and desperate. So there's these 7 skills, right? So if you can make one of your commanders whenever anytime you deploy into this combat, get multiple rewards on it. Maybe it's multiple swords, or maybe it's multiple reveal effects. That is super strong. Like that one commander getting you effectively maybe like a troop and a spice back throughout the rest of the game would be so nice. Also, for 3 spice, you get 4 Solari back, right? And why is that important? Let's think about where text can be bought. Text can only be bought on green spaces, other than the 2 intrigues that allow you to get text other ways, which is like through the combat, or if you retreat a troop and you get like a tech battlefield research, and then you can like discard a card to get like 1 spice off of a tech. But other than that, the only way to get like a tech normally would be through green spaces. And if you look at all the green spaces except for Swordmaster and Privilege, they all have a commander on it. So what happens? People go to gather support, or people go to assembly hall, people go to high council and buy this tech, to instantly get the Solari, and then they instantly get the commander, and then with that commander they pick up 2 skills. Commonly you'll see driven and charismatic being picked up together if they're both out there. Sometimes you'll also see canny being picked up because you are going to be going to green space to acquire this tech, and the commander that you get on that moment, you're instantly going to be able to deploy into the combat as long as you do this on your first action. So what I've seen people do, and I've done myself, is we'll wait until round 2. Usually this is a very good tech for second position. If you see this tech on second position, you are in a very fantastic spot. Why? Because you have first priority to hog a basin. And what does hog a basin get you? It gets you enough, because as long as nobody blocks you on hog a basin on action 1 or round 1, you get hog a basin for a +1, allowing you 3 spice, and that 3 spice is going to be able to get you Plasteel Blades. And this is going to be round 2, so you're going to be at least left with a commander on gather support or assembly hall. Sometimes you will see people go to assembly hall and top deck like 2 Solari Intrigue to pick up the commander, but those are pretty rare. Anyways, other than that, you're in a very good spot, right? And it doesn't really matter what the skills are, as long as you just don't pick up loyal first, or you don't pick up desperate first. You could probably pick up. You're happy with canny because you get the Solari anyways. Sorry, you get to deploy later on. And then the second one probably should be the first one. By the way, like the first commander skill should always be driven, and the second commander skill probably should be like maybe charismatic, depending on the row, right? If the row is pretty heavy or pretty expensive, then maybe charismatic is a good choice. Otherwise, you might be pick up hardy, depending on what everybody's combat situation or garrison troop is. Sometimes, and canny. I think those are the 3 choices. Fierce is definitely situational because you are in second position, and technically second position is the one who has the best position to get worms. And if first position doesn't go to Fremkit, nobody really is going to be going heavy on worms. So at best, you're maybe going to get like 1 more sword on the Sardukar commander, which isn't great. Can be relevant maybe for like early combats, but other than that, I wouldn't suggest picking up Fierce. But yeah, I think like Plasteel Blades, I think is probably one of the, I don't know, actually For me, I actually think picking up Plasteel Blades. I would pick up Plasteel Blades at any point during the game. Like at least Panopticon is like, if it's like round 7 or round 8, I'm like, okay, well if I have all my faction bumps, I don't need Panopticon. But Plasteel Blades, if it shows off even late, as long as I have even one commander skill, that all I have to do, because if you read Plasteel Blades, it says trash this. Sorry, whenever you recruit a Sardukar commander. So that doesn't mean when you acquire it from the board. You can also just spawn a Sardukar commander and then trash Plasteel Blades and then get another skill. What I've seen done, and what I've seen done and also done myself, is we originally buy one desperate skill, right? We buy a desperate on like one of the commanders, and then we trash the desperate. I've done this. I've did this once. We trashed the desperate, and then once I trash the desperate, because you can only have one skill at a time, right? Or one of each skill every time. So I trash the desperate, and then another desperate shows off, right? And then with Plasteel Blades, I recruit a commander on my reveal turn to buy desperate and then trash desperate again. So in one round, I was able to desperate twice, and that actually won me the combat. I don't know about how many swords, but it was a really cool play. But I did win the combat on that round, and I think and that was like a really late round as well. So I got Plasteel Blades off really late. I mean, the earlier the better because you get more value, and even later it can be relevant for for sword commander skills. Sometimes you maybe go to loyal, depending on what you have on Emperor. But yeah, I think Plasteel Blades is probably the highest sought out tech in the game. I've seen people rush for it so badly that they literally pick Coda or they pick Beast in 4th position just to simply go to Haga Basin on first round to then be able to trigger Plasteel Blades. Like it is that sought out after. But yeah, I think that's all I'm gonna say about Plasteel Blades. I mean, it's great on every leader. There's no like situation to it. You just buy it, and you're in a very good spot. Then I guess let's move on to another 3-cost tech here: Suspensor Suits. So Suspensor Suits, what does it read? It says for each intrigue card you generate during your turn, you get a troop. So this does not mean generating intrigues on combat. You don't get troops back into conflict. But anytime you do generate an intrigue, you get a troop, and you can deploy that troop directly into the conflict. Actually, it's not can. You have to deploy that troop into the conflict. Um, and that is very, very strong, because now that makes assembly hall effectively like a it's a 2 sword space plus any other swords generate. Secrets becomes pretty powerful. Being able to if you steal intrigues on secrets also gets you more intrigues back, because you do generate intrigues even if you're stealing, and then you get more troops into combat. I've seen people who literally play a Suspensor Suit strategy, and as you can see, like it commonly it can be paired. I mean, if it's paired with advanced data analysis here, which is like if you flip the tech, you get an intrigue as long as you trash a spy. You get more troops back for advanced, so you get troop into the combat for advanced data analysis, and and we already know how strong intrigues are, right? They could be swords on there, which could give you combat potential. They could be faction bumps, which give you which get you points through there. They could be what else we commonly seen? Troops, more combat potential. I don't know what other types are there. I mean, it could be like this. It could be a bunch of end games, and then you kind of give like a goal, and you get like a game plan on how to deploy. So, but like also this makes sure that like if you have no troops in your garrison, you can still deploy into the combat. Like okay, sometimes you like exhaust your garrison, or at least I've exhausted my garrison, and I'm like, well, I kind of want to get into combat, so let me just go to assembly hall. I get intrigue, I get persuasion, and then I also get to deploy a troop into combat without having to like go to like Arcane or Siege or whatever to generate the troop itself. And yeah, it's been super nice. Commonly you will see this card being, this tech being bought with like cards that you can generate intrigues with. Captured Mentat is commonly used with this. Or Captured Mentat is pretty nice with this. Imperial Spy Master. What else is out there? Spy Network, also one of the stronger cards with this tech, because you can generate a spy. You can generate an intrigue on reveal. So any card that generates intrigues on reveal is fantastic. You can also, I mean, if you have some bumped up, bump down abilities with like the Benny Alliance, or if you have any, like if you're like Erlon and you hit like 2 influence on Emperor, then you can keep going up and down to generate intrigues as well, and then you get troops like that. And it also makes Sardukar a super nice space, because you get 4 troops. You also get the intrigue, which generates you another troop. But yeah, I mean, Suspensor Suits for me, I think is probably one of the most valuable techs in the game, and I would actually put it above self-showing messages. Like if I see Suspensors, I'm probably gonna be buying it, because it's not like you don't have to play a game around it. It's just I think I think Suspensor Suits just gives you a lot of flexibility in the combat. Like, okay, sometimes you could just go, I've taken actions where I literally just go to like assembly hall, and then second action is to secrets. And I'm like, well, I mean, I have 4 troops in the combat. I mean, 4 strength in the combat, plus any daggers are real, and I have persuasion, and I don't go to like these, spaces where I have to actually deploy. And I'm like, okay, well, that was a fantastic turn for me. I got I got a bump on Benny, which maybe might be relevant to maybe trigger my prepare the ways to get me more card draw. Who knows? But it's been super super nice for me. That's why I think I'm gonna rate it above self-destructing messages and rapid dropships. But yeah, I mean, I think that's enough said about Suspensor Suits on why it's powerful. For those of you who have played, with Suspensor Suits, you guys, I mean, as long as you've unleashed its full potential, you guys can realize like how good it can be. As long as you pair it with the right amount of with the right intrigues and whatnot. You can commonly see this tech being bought with Staban because he has the ability to generate an intrigue on with his signet ring. You can also see this being bought with Baron. It's not a bad option because Baron has the 1 salary for an intrigue generation. And then I mean, as a pretty heavy Jessica player, I've also bought this intrigue simply, and I've flipped like later in the game just so that I have the ability to see more intrigues on like assembly hall with my signet ring. And yeah, I've enjoyed that gameplay. I just get a bunch of troops in the combat, and people just don't expect it, and they get caught off guard. And then my combats, and then the intrigues I get give me combat swords, which I can then win the combat with. I mean, it's been super super nice. But yeah, I think that's enough said about Suspensor Suits. Now let's take a look at one of the most interesting techs in the game, and that is going to be Forbidden Weapons. Now, why is Forbidden Weapons one of the most interesting techs, or at least why do I think it's one of the most interesting techs? Let's take a look at what it does. So for 2 spice, you can break the wall and get a troop, right? But then on your reveal turn, for the rest of the game until you decide to do something else with it, you get 3 swords and sorry, you must choose between getting 3 swords and a faction bump down somewhere, or you must lose all your spice and trash this tech. So I've already said it, right? This tech is extremely extremely situational. If you go in, I guess I know Cheesable, he's made a couple, like I think a video or something, where he literally just buys Forbidden Weapons round 1 and then just says like, okay, look, I'm just gonna be a combat threat, and that is gonna be my game plan. And then maybe at some point in the game he's gonna trash Forbidden Weapons and then start working on his faction bumps because he's already scored enough points from combat. And that could be a strategy, right? A common strategy I've seen with Forbidden Weapons is people buy this when they just lose an alliance, right? Say the alliance say you were playing to play for an alliance, right? But then that alliance gets maxed out. Well, now you just have like 2 or 3 bumps just sitting there doing nothing. So you might as well convert them to swords. At least that's how I've used it. And for me, that's why I think Forbidden Weapons is in like the situational category because of the fact that like, hey, look, if you lose an alliance, then at least those extra bumps that you have, maybe you can use them to take swords on, right? Another thing that I've commonly seen with this specific strategy is going to Fremen early on and getting your hooks, right? And then once you get your hooks, all you do is just buy Forbidden Weapons, break the wall, and then now you can go down in Fremen for the rest of the game, and just like spawn worms. That's it, because you have hooks. I've seen gameplay with that, and then they spike propaganda on round 7, and then they win propaganda, and then they get all their faction boosts that they need. You also commonly see this tech being paired with Panopticon. I mean, let's like remind ourselves what Panopticon does. On endgame, you gain an influence with each faction where you have 1 or less influence. So you realistically only need 1 influence on every faction bump, or on every faction, and then you score and you score 4 endgame points. Because you just get another faction bump on every other factions, right? Forbidden Weapons helps you go down on faction bumps that you have extra faction bumps on, with Panopticon. So like sometimes you can probably just go, so like I've seen games where people literally buy Forbidden Weapons early on, and then Panopticon flips, and then instantly they rush to buy Panopticon because they're like, well, this is my way for me to score my faction points because I already scored enough points from my combat points. But yeah, I think I like that. This is surprisingly a viable strategy. It's just extremely situational in the sense that you have to, man, you kind of like have to force yourself into that game plan. You can also choose to trash the tech at some point during the game, in the middle of the game, and start working on your faction moves that way. However, I really wouldn't recommend. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, forbidden weapons is a crazy tech that you should buy. But it does have its uses, especially like the two spice for the wall break is probably one of its biggest strengths, because wall breaks aren't very common. There's like a couple of entries that do it. Detonation does it. Special mission does it. And I believe, what is it called? Unexpected allies. Those break the wall, and then you can break the wall at siege. And then the other on the I think the other one that I'm really aware of is like forbidden weapons, right? So there's like 4 or 5 ways to really break the wall, and this is you get a nice little option there to break the wall without having to go to siege, and then you can use the next time you go to siege, you can just use it to get the troop and then deploy it on like worms, right? Um, but yeah, I would say I would put forbidden weapons on situational because it's literally just like what kind of game plan are you like what kind of game are you playing? You could probably score points early on, but then you give up faction points, and then we don't play your diplomacy as much, but you kind of have to play your diplomacy because you need to get the bumps to then like at some point you need to get your bumps, and then you can go down eventually. One thing to keep in mind with forbidden weapons is that you must choose between 3 swords and a bump down. But if you don't have a bump down, you can simply just, if you just don't have any faction bumps, say you're 0 on every faction, you just get 3 swords. You can just choose, I'm gonna take 3 swords, and that is completely allowed. But yeah, it can be useful. I've seen it happen. But yeah, I think that should be it for forbidden weapons. It's definitely a very situational tech. Can go either way. But yeah, then we're gonna move on to Gene Locked Vault. So for 2 spice, you get to choose between either getting an intrigue or getting a card draw. And then for the rest of the game, your intrigue cards cannot be stolen unless you have 4 or more. So all it really does is it increases your intrigue holding ability from like from 3 to 4 before you get stolen from, which on its own is not that great of an ability, right? I mean, how often are people really holding 4 intrigues anyways, right? Like how often do people sit there and like, oh yeah, let me hold on to like all 4 of my intrigues and not play any of them? Like the real reason why people are ever going to be even buying this tech is simply for the card draw, or simply just to see an intrigue. I mean, with Gene Locked Vault, at least in the games that I've played, or that with my against my opponents, or I've done myself, I literally only buy it if I'm thinking like, oh, I have high council and have like an extra spice left, and I'm like, you know what, whatever, spending 1 spice for an intrigue seems pretty useful. I've sometimes also done it to go to assembly hall to buy Gene Locked Vault, to get the card draw, to maybe buy like a big card on the row, right? Those are the only like mini use cases. Other than that, it's really not like it's not fantastic. Like I wouldn't sit here and be like, oh my god, Gene Locked is a great entry, a great tech, right? Because realistically, like how often are you ever going to be getting, like how often is the intrigue? I mean, sorry, not the intrigue. The intrigue is nice, right? But then the actual ability of having 4 or more intrigues, being able to hold 4 or more intrigues, is not that great. Because I mean, throughout the game, you probably want to be playing your intrigues anyways, like whether it's combat. I guess you could be holding all 4 combats. It's nice. Or you're holding like 3 or 4 end games. It's pretty nice. But other than that, it's not that great. Like I would definitely put it like situational. I would say it's situational. It's situational based on literally like what, like, okay, do you have the extra spice to maybe buy to buy the tech? Otherwise, it's not the greatest. And it's literally dependent on like what the row is or what your hand is like. Sometimes I literally buy Gene Locked Vault because my hand is really bad, and I'm like, well, at least if I can play my dagger to assembly hall or dagger to high council and just get on the card draw, so I don't see like a convincing spice slow in my hand for the rest of the game, or like for that round. It's pretty effective. But other than that, it's not the greatest. I do think it's better than Gene Locked Vault. Sorry, it's better than Nav Chamber because it's at least the card draw can be effective in most early games. Even late games could be useful for Spice and Slow. And the intrigue can be powerful throughout any time. I do think it's a little bit worse than Chaom Transports because I think Chaom Transports has like the ability to it has the ability to like score a point. If you are playing that game, G-Locked Vault doesn't really have the ability to score a point. Nav Chamber again can score a point. It's just, I mean, but it scores for half a point, and it's 5 spice. Chaom Transport's effectively almost like when you are buying it, you are almost going to be scoring that point. But yeah, I think this rating is probably fine. Continuing with the cheaper techs, we're gonna go into Glowglobes. What does Glowglobes do? For 2 spice, you get a faction bump. And for the rest of the game, until maybe you trash the tech if you're Coda, you may look at the top card of your deck at any moment. At any moment. This could be. It doesn't even have to be on your turn. You can look at it at any time. But one thing to keep in mind for glow globes, like I believe is one of the frequently asked questions, is are you allowed to take the bump with glow globes after seeing after seeing your top card? Because I've had some situations where if I know what my next card is gonna be, then I'm gonna determine where to take the bump, whether on which faction bump to take, because I'm planning on drawing that next card, and then if I know what access that next card has, or what ability that next card has, that might change my decision on which faction to take. But yeah, other than that, that's a little commonly asked question. But anyways, in terms of how good this tech is, let's think about it, right? How often are you drawing cards, right? Almost every time, almost every round, you're most likely going to be drawing cards. So if you know the top card of your deck at every point, at every time when you are seeing your next card, that is a lot of information that is relevant, in terms of like maybe spice slows, in terms of hitting like a nice, a lot of persuasion to maybe buy a good card. I mean, there's a lot of use cases of always knowing always knowing the top card of your deck. One thing is that if you don't have a deck, then you cannot look at the top card. You cannot reshuffle your discard into and make it a deck. That is just one of the cases, like niche cases. But other than that, like I mean, 2 spice for a bump, and like the amount of value that you get from glow globes for taking for looking at the top card of your deck is super super nice. I mean, if you know the top card of your deck, right, and you say you have like a card draw intrigue in your hand, there's what, 2 in there or 3 in there. Depart for Arrakis, there is cunning, and there is intelligence support. So if you have any of these 3 intrigues to get a card draw in, then knowing the top card of your deck is super nice, because then you can say like, okay, well, if I know the top card of my deck has 2 persuasion, then hey, I can draw into it, and then I'll have better odds of hitting maybe overthrow or maybe hitting splice slow. And yeah, like you with that information, you are always better off. You're always in a better position. So with that, I think we're going to be rating glow globes at a very. I mean, I'll probably even say it's like above rapid dropships here. Actually, maybe even above self-showing messages. Like knowing the top card of your deck, although it doesn't seem that strong for two. I mean, let's take a look at how cheap of tech it is. It's 2 spice, right? It's 2 spice of a tech, and it's a faction bump, so it already generates you the same amount of, like on just the buy effect, it generates you the same amount of points as nav chamber. But it really can't generate you more points, but it can help you manage your deck a lot better. And as we know, with the amount of combos that exist with, like, Fremen synergies, there's a bunch of combos for Benny synergies in terms of like cheat manipulation. There's some Benny synergies with like Tread in Darkness, although that card has been removed from the community version. What other Benny synergies out there? Oh, Possible Futures. Those have some Benny synergies. There's also some of the Spacing Guild synergies where it's like you can discard a card, and then if you discard a Spacing Guild card, you get extra effects. So it helps you keep your combos together effectively. As long as you know the top card of your deck, so you know when to draw or when to not draw, right? So it can't like objectively give you a second point, or like score more than like half a point, but it can help you manage your deck a lot better. And because of that, I think Glow Globes is going to be one of the stronger techs in within this expansion, Bloodlines expansion here. Yeah, and I think that's it. I mean, knowing the top card of your deck is super super nice. But yeah, we'll keep it there. Um, Next up, let's go to Planetary Array. For 2 spice, the same as Glow Globes, you get a trash, and then when you win a conflict, you get a card draw. Okay. Originally looking at this tech, I was thinking like, oh, if you're a beast, or if you're a gurney or something, and you're winning a bunch of combats, you could get a couple of card draws from this. However, the more that you play Uprising or Bloodlines, one person is not really going to be dominating combats unless they have like Strike Fleet and like Possible Futures, and just like have a bunch of troops for the rest of the game, and they just like hammer every combat and win, right? the extra card draw could be relevant, because for persuasion for like next round and stuff. But other than that, like the trash early on is super nice, can be useful on like Hazimir. But other than that, like I don't know, Planetary Array, it's really just like a one and done thing. Like people literally only buy this tech to just cycle through more techs. Like if you're Hazimir, I can understand buying this tech because you get the extra trash to get the Solari and stuff. I can understand buying this tech early on because you think you're gonna win the combat. Like there is arguments to be made where it's like you go to assembly hall, you buy the commander, you get canny, and then you deploy into the combat, you win the combat, and then you get an extra card draw for the next round, and then maybe you can that extra card draw might help you with something. Who knows, right? There's some relevancy to it, but other than that, like I really don't think it's that great of a tech. Like I would probably put it like in the one of the worst techs here. I would probably put it like above Sardukar High Command because it's super cheap, so people are going to be buying it. And I don't think like it's really not, I wouldn't even say it's like situational. It's like it's people really just I at least in the games that I've played, I don't really see people like buying this tech unless like the other two techs on the row are also like Ornithopter Fleet and Sardukar High Command. Like people almost always are going to be buying like other techs over Planetary Array. Like okay, yes, obviously you probably wouldn't pick any of the situational techs, maybe Genlock Vault over Planetary Array, but you wouldn't pick like Nav Chamber. But other than that, like you'd probably almost always want to pick one of these better techs on the row instead of Planetary Array. So that's why I do think this tech literally sits on the row for most of the game, unless you're like specifically Hazimir or you specifically need a trash or just to get rid of a dagger. Other than that, like I don't know, I don't think paying 2 spice for a trash and then maybe you win the conflict, it's not the greatest. But yeah, I guess if you really value trashing, I can understand an argument to maybe move it up to like situational, or maybe even like I don't think anybody's ever gonna put this on like the B tier of techs with like comparing this to almost advanced data analysis or spy drones. I do think it's just worse than that objectively. But yeah, I think that's it. Like Planetary Array can be better than Sardukar High Command and Ornithopter Fleet in the sense that it literally is a easy deck. It's if you could get this for like 1 spice with the High Council and trash a card that you say you took a dagger to High Council, you trashed a card. You know what? Fine, you get a trash, and 1 spice for a trash isn't really bad. It's like it's literally cunning, right? Same thing. Um, yeah. Other than that, like there's not much to say on Planetary Array. Next, we'll go on to one of the most one of the, definitely the most interesting techs. Oh well, at least not interesting techs. It can make your game interesting, I would say. But Servo Receivers. So for 2 spice, you get to do your signaling, and then for the rest of the game, your signaling gets all the faction space icons. So effectively turning your signaling into fold space. Which because your signaling already has access to all the three city space or city harvest and lands rat spaces. I think that's what like officially called, which is just green, yellow, and blue access. But now you also get all of the faction access, so it's super nice. And because the access is super nice for in terms of maybe like getting alliances, also just having a second diplomacy in your hand, and having the ability to like having the ability to use a signet ring to like as a diplomacy is super nice. I think because of that, I actually do think the Servo Receivers would be a snap buy for a lot of people. Well, I wouldn't say like snap buy, but for a lot of leaders, they would prefer their signet ring to have faction access, and I think it's pretty good value tech. How does this compare to like rapid dropships or self-drilling messages? Like I don't know. It literally is dependent on your leader, right? Like if you're Yuna, getting 2 spice to be able to like trigger your signaling isn't fantastic, right? So you're probably not going to buy it. If you're Hazimir, I guess maybe it could be relevant because you get to, if you can play your dagger to assembly hall and then you get to trash the dagger instantly when you buy this tech because, you get to trash a card and play. Super nice, I guess. Could be relevant. Mainly the best leaders for Servo Receivers are going to be your combat leaders, right? So what do I mean by my combat leaders? Muad'Dib, I mean, getting your signet ring card draw can turn espionage into a double draw or a triple draw, I guess, if it's a spy. It can turn like, and mainly like one of the strongest leaders with Servo or two. There's two strong leaders with Servo Receivers. One of them is being Staban Tuik. So Staban Tuik does not start with the diplomacy. So getting his signet ring to do the whole diplomacy action is fantastic, and then he can also have a signet ring print out Solari, or get intrigues, whatnot, right? And the other leader is Beast Raban, and Beast has what's called brutality, where he starts with sorry, if he has an alliance, he gets 2 troops from his signet ring. Otherwise, he just gets 1 troop. So imagine getting this intrigue, or just getting this tech as a beast, and you just have the Fremen alliance. I mean, being able to go to like Fremkid to get the alliance, or go into tactics and get the alliance, and then having your signet ring deploy 2 more troops in is super, super, super strong, right? And that's why I think Servo Receivers, like, I mean, on some leaders, it would be like up here, right? It'd be up here, maybe even here. Like for Beast and for Staban, maybe it would be like a rush. Like people are like they're just going there as much as possible, or or spending their spice to go get this tech instantly. But for most leaders, whose signet rings are like, all right. I mean, Margot has a spy, not the greatest. Who else is out there? Like Fade, can go through a track a little bit quicker. Chani, this is not a bad tech, because the instant signaling ability to spend a water to get 2 card draw is nice, and then being able to convert your signet ring into a diplomacy to maybe go deliver supplies to then also get the 2 card draw with your signet ring is also nice. Other than that, I don't think it's like really that strong on most leaders. I personally would choose spy drones over. Actually, I don't know. I think maybe server receivers on most leaders would be nice, because I'm a faction kind of guy. Um, or maybe spy drones. I'm not quite sure. I think this is an interesting argument to be like, okay, spy drones, gets you the trashing anyways, and Solari and spies, but then server receivers might generate you, points through being able to take your faction to like Highliner, or sorry, being able to take your ring to like Highliner, and whatnot. But yeah, I'm like, realistically speaking, I don't like server receivers only good on like people who have on leaders that have really strong signet rings, right? When I say strong signet rings, I mean like even signet rings that just generate you like Solari, like um, right? Oh, not the Solari, I mean like Spice. Being able to take Koda's ring to like espionage and just get the Spice back is super nice. Or even being able to trash attack with her, with the espionage play, is also super nice. With Esbar, you get the Spice back. It's like pretty versatile, I would say. So you definitely get a good value on it, but on some leaders it can be extremely powerful. But yeah, I think that should be it for server receivers. On some leaders, it's S tier. On some leaders, it's like not the greatest. The one leader that you really should never be buying server receivers is with Steersman. Why? Because Steersman does not start with a signet ring. So if you buy this tech, you literally just spend 2 spice to do nothing. There was, however, one game that I played with Searsman where I ended up buying this tech, and it was literally only because it was the cheapest tech on the row, and I had Ixian Ambassador. Um, yeah, and Ixian Ambassador, I needed a tech to do something, so I ended up buying several receivers, and it was a funny little situation where I just literally just spent a spice. Or was that 1 spice or 2 spice? I don't remember how many spices I spent. Was it, did I have cancel at the moment? I don't remember. But I literally just spent the spice to get server receivers, and like I did nothing. I don't have a signal ring, so I can't do anything. But yeah, other than that, I think server receivers is pretty good value for what it does. Um, Compared to spy drones, I think it's better than advanced data analysis on most leaders. However, between like spy drones, actually on some leaders it's really not that bad. Like I would pick advanced data analysis over server receivers. So maybe it would go here. But it belongs in this. It definitely belongs in this tier. Over over like I don't think it's above ADA and spy drones. But I do think it is above like Gene Locked and Chaom Transports. But yeah, that's it for server receivers. Next, we will go on to Training Depot, one of the last tech of these Bloodlines expansion. And take a look at what it does. For 1 spice on your reveal turn, if you have command, you get 2 swords. That's it. It literally is one of the one of the I guess like normal techs. Like it's one of the cheaper techs, the cheapest techs probably. This is like the new artillery from XMO. But it's not as broken as artillery. But and then like in terms of like rating it, where does it sit? It would probably be like powerful throughout. Is it better than dropships? No. But getting 2 swords early on, with like high council, is super strong. Also, once you do it, it just keeps your opponents on their toes because if they know that you are going to be rolling for 6 persuasion, then they know that you're going to have those extra 2 swords early in the combats. So they're hesitant to deploy because they know they're probably not going to get anything from the combat here. You commonly see Beast because B starts with a spice and a Solari, so he usually goes to Spice Refinery. And then if this tech is on the opening row, he will be the first one to go High Council. And since High Council decreases the cost of buying techs by one, you just get Training Depot for free. And I mean, this tech literally almost always is going to be bought if you have High Council. Like it's literally a free tech, right? Why would you say no? Also, if you have High Council, you're almost always going to be triggering command. So this tech is very, very strong for that. Like you just trigger command, right? Very strong on like every leader. You don't really it's not leader dependent. It's not playstyle dependent. You just literally just it's just 2 swords, right? If you are playing combat heavy, then the 2 swords can be relevant. If it's like close ties, and if you're not playing combat heavy, well, it's fine, right? Because you can easily pick up like nice third places, nice second places in the combat. Yeah, I think that's literally it. You can't do it's not leader dependent and it's not style dependent or like play style dependent, so it's literally just and it's powerful throughout. Like you probably are just gonna buy it. And actually maybe it actually does belong above like self-string messages and rapid dropships is because like people literally just buy because it's a free tech. So I mean, yeah, in terms of like a tier list, I'd probably put Training Depot as above even Glowglobes maybe because it's literally a free tech. Above Suspensor Suits, all right, maybe we're getting a little bit over. Um, maybe we're getting a little bit too maybe too high. But I mean I literally this is a personal tier list, right? So I personally think Suspensor Suits is super super strong, but and it's not as strong as Training Depot because Suspensor literally generates you 2 strength that Training Depot does as well, right? Um, but yeah, I mean that is literally it for all of the Bloodlines techs. Last but not least, we are going to be rating the community techs that are involved within this I guess in the community version of the game. The community version is simply just a homemade version, or what is it, homebrew version of the of Dune Imperium Uprising with Bloodlines, with just 2 techs added, and a bunch of other cards being replaced out here and there. But yeah, the 2 techs that have been added to the community version are Disposal Facility and Holoprojectors, and I know there's a lot of people who play the community version, so they'd be curious to see where these two sit for the for the tech row within this Bloodlines situation. So let's start with the first one, Disposal Facility. So what does it do? For 3 spice, you get to trash a card, and then on your reveal turn, if you have 6 or more cards or 6 or more persuasion, you may trash one of the cards in play. That's just I mean, but because since this is a Ix and Immortality tech. This this the term command hadn't been coined yet, so they I guess they just wrote out what command effectively is if you have 6 or more persuasion. So I don't know. It's just this personally. I like Disposal Facility. I love trashing cards. Also, you getting a trash early on is super nice, and then also getting the ability to trash on your real turn, right? Getting rid of both your dunes, getting rid of both daggers, and being able to replace them with like maybe Prepare the Ways so you have higher persuasion is super super nice. In terms of like leaders, this would be a very good Hazimir tech because you get an instant Solari for trashing. But then anytime you do have 6 persuasion, you get to also trash another card, giving you Solari on reveal. But yeah, I mean this card is very this tech is very strong. I like it because I love trashing cards, so that I can see my better cards more. Yeah, and I just don't really want to see my dunes and my daggers again and again. Much rather would see better cards. Even Prepare the Ways I'd be happy with because at least I get persuasion and maybe even some card draw. So because of that, I think a Disposal Facility probably sits in the good value tier. For some leaders, it's not that great. Also, you need to kind of have High Council to be able to trigger 6 persuasion every round. So yeah, getting High Council can be a little bit challenging simply because you kind of have to have like at least 2 spice, but also need to have 5 Solari to even go High Council and then be able to do this. But yeah, with High Council, the disposal facility is super, super, super strong, right? Because you're probably going to be reeling for 6 persuasion most rounds, except maybe like one where you end up drawing like a really, really bad hand, and maybe it's like a double spice slow or something, and you're probably not going to reel for six persuasion that round. But I mean, it's fine. Also, the good thing is that even later rounds, like like round 6, when you have like a spice slow in your hand in your deck, you reveal it and then you can instantly trash it as long as you fit 6 persuasion as well. So that's also super nice. It allows you to deck churn pretty quickly, and because of that, I think it definitely would sit in this good value tier. It's definitely, I would say it's worse than Servo Receivers and ADA and Spy Drones for sure, because I mean Spy Drones gets you Solari on its own and it allows you to trash. It basically does disposal facility but better. It is a little bit more expensive. Advanced data analysis. I mean, there's not really correct comparison in terms of like spice. If I have a spy down with for ADA, I'd probably pick up ADA over disposal facility. The only reason I'd maybe pick disposal facility is strictly because I'm Hazimir or I just don't have a spy down. Right. Those are the only two reasons. But other than that, I mean, for server receivers, I don't know. I like having faction access on my signet ring, especially if my leader is strong. But sometimes I can understand an argument for maybe putting disposal facility over server receivers. So it can go either way. Both of these can are interchangeable based on what you value as a player, and within that specific game. But yeah, that should be it for disposal facility. And finally, we are gonna go to Holoprojectors. For 3 spice, you flip this tech once per round. You can discard a card to draw a card. And it's really just, I mean, it's just a versatile tech, right? I mean, there's really no like contingency on it. Like you don't have to be a good leader. You don't have to be a specific leader to play this tech. And because of that, I think literally it's just one of those powerful throughout techs. Like it's just like, okay, well, I mean, I'm happy with this tech. Most of the time when I buy it, being able to discard like a spice of slow in your hand to maybe see a better card that has access on it, or persuasion on it is super nice. Being able to just like, there's also some combinations you can get with like spacing goes favor, where you discard the card, get 2 spice to draw another, draw a card. It's super, super nice. You can get a lot of value with this tech, for 3 spice. I mean, does it generate you a point? I don't know, but it can stop you from like maybe losing out on a point. Um, and what I mean by that is like you could literally just, when you cycle through your deck more, you're probably going to be seeing the cards that you bought more often. When I say you're probably going to like stop from losing a point, I mean like, well, if you have a bad hand, you can, instead of having like a terrible round that hand, or that terrible round with that hand, you just get to cycle out one card and maybe you see a better card, and your round isn't as bad. Um, but yeah, I mean it's definitely worse than like dropships and self-string messages and all these texts. Simply because I think, I mean, for 3 spice, I mean the only reason Depot and Glowglobes are even up here is because of their cost, right? Their cost is super cheap, and their value is a lot for how much they cost. Holoprojectors, 3 spice, pretty nice. Discard to draw is very is fantastic of an ability. But I think that should be like, I think this is the tier list. We have our strongest 3 with Plasteel Blades, Panopticon, and Delivery Bay. Then we get into like the pretty powerful text throughout. Then we have like the Suspensor, we have the depots, the globes, self-determining messages like the extra persuasion, and then drop ships to be able to make every space into a combat space, and then holo projectors, which just gives you like cycling abilities. And then we have like the text that give you decent value throughout the game. The drones, the ADA disposal, and then servo receivers. Then you have like the situational text where it's like it just depends on your game plan. For Chaom Transports, then you have Gene Locked Vault in there, because I mean it's not situational in the sense that like, I mean it's situational in the sense that the card draw might be relevant for like what's on the row. But like usually people aren't buying this for the actual tech effect. People are really buying it for the intrigue or the draw. Then you have the nav chamber, literally 5 spice for a bump when you could get 2 spice for a bump with Glowglobes. Better off with that. And then the board space costing 1 spice and 1 Solari less isn't that great. And then forbidden weapons, extremely situational. With literally, if you've lost an alliance or alliance race, or you're playing into like a panopticon strategy, and then finally you have the text at the bottom, which are just like people really just don't buy unless they don't have anything else to buy and they just need the point. Or with Ornithopter Fleet, where you have a bunch of unmatched icons and you just happen to want to match them to end the game. But Yeah, and I think that should be it for the video. Um, hope you guys liked it, and make sure to subscribe if you want to, stay tuned for more of these strategy guides or tier lists that I'll continue doing. But thank you, and thank you for sticking around. We'll see you guys next time.